Okay, so if your bust measurement is larger than the measurement indicated for the full bust on the size chart for the base size that you chose based on your high bust, we're going to need to do a full bust adjustment. And let me show you. Here's my actual pattern, and fuller bust is going to need a larger dart. But we don't want to add more room on the side or at the waist. We just want a larger dart to accommodate that fuller bust. So I'm going to be working on these half scale models here to show you how to change that to fit you perfectly. So to do a full bust adjustment, you're going to want your pattern, you're going to want some paper, you're going to want a ruler, scissors, and something to trace it out with. If you are doing this at home and you're using the large scale pattern, one really good thing to use to trace your pattern is wrapping paper. You can roll it out onto the backside, use that white backside, and retrace your pattern and have plenty of room. So to do the full bust adjustment, we're going to first want to make a line from the arm side of the pattern to the tip of the dart. And then you want to go straight down from that dart point to the hem of your pattern. And then we're going to use scissors to cut along these lines. Oh, and there's one more. You want to go from the tip of the dart to the middle of the outer edge of the dart. So there we go, 3 lines. You want to cut up your vertical line and then towards the arm side. Do not cut through the arm side though. Get as close as you can without cutting through. And what that does is it creates this kind of hinge, and we can now use this to add room where you need it, but not where you don't. You're also going to want to cut on that center line from the dart towards the tip, but not through it. This is going to create a second hinge so that we make sure that the room is added only in the bust, not down here at the waist and the hips where you don't need the extra room. So take your full bust measurement and subtract the full bust measurement from the size chart. That's going to give you the number that is the total amount of the full bust adjustment that you need to make. So let's pretend that on the size small, the full bust measurement is 35 inches and your bust measurement is 36 inches. That means you're going to need a 1 inch total full bust adjustment. You need to divide that 1 inch in half because we are working on only half the pattern at a time. Just got one side or the other. So that means that each side of the pattern will need 1/2 inch adjusted. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put my pattern down. I am going to use my ruler, and I am going to spread apart on this vertical line here, and I want to make sure that's 1/2 inch spread apart. And I want to hold those pieces in place. And then I am going to want to mark between the bust point here and where the bust point was originally. I want to go halfway on that line. This is going to be your new bust point. This is the new end of your dart. And then I want to mark the ends of the darts here. You can see how this dart got much wider. To retrace your pattern now, what you're going to want to do, you'll trace the front seam and the neckline and the shoulder. All of those are going to be traced the same. But when you start coming down the arm side, you're going to notice that arm side, it becomes more of starting to become like a J shape instead of a C shape. And then you want to trace just to the point of your dart, come down here just to the point of your dart, and then we're going to actually swing this back in to where it was, and we want to trace the bottom corner and the front corner there. Now when I move the pattern piece, you can see I've got guidelines to finish it out. So here's where I want my dart to be now. And then I'm going to taper that dart back to where the original side seam was and come back. You are adding a tiny bit of length to the center front. And that's because if you have a larger bust, you need more fabric to come out and over so that you don't look like your dress is too short in the front. So that added length is appropriate at the front. When I compare my original pattern to my adjusted pattern, you should see that by the time we get down to the waist and the hip, we've got the same width. And in fact, you can even taper this in more quickly if you prefer. So I could do my line like that, for example, and come back in. It depends on how quickly your bust comes back in, whether or not you want to do that. But you can see that my arm size is different, and this is to accommodate the bust. I've got more room that has just ended up in this area, which is where I need it, and then it's the same size in the neckline and in the hips, because you don't need it bigger all over, you just need it bigger in the bust. The final adjustment that you might have to make is after you look at all of this and you've redrawn your pattern and you've got your larger dart for your full bust, you're gonna want to check the bust point. A correct bust dart is going to point right at the fullest part of your bust. So depending on your particular body, you may need to raise or lower the dart on the pattern to match your body. And I'm gonna show you how to do that. First, you're going to need to measure. Start by wearing a garment that has a shoulder seam on it that's correctly laying on your shoulder, and line the measuring tape up to your shoulder seam and then measure with a relaxed shoulder down to the fullest point of your bust. And then add 1/2 inch to that measurement for the seam allowance on the pattern. Take that measurement and compare it to the actual pattern. So you're going to measure from the shoulder point down to the bust dart. If the bust dart is pointing right at your number, then you're good to go and you can go ahead and start sewing. If your number was less or more, then you're going to need to raise or lower the bust dart. And let me show you how to do that. First, you want to start by drawing a horizontal line between the center front and the point of the dart. And then you want to go ahead and cut the bust dart right out of your pattern. And then you want to draw your second line with wherever you needed to raise or lower it. So if your bust dart needs to go lower, which is more common, you're going to say it needed to go a 1/2 inch down. You're going to draw another line 1/2 inch down from your first line. And then you want to take the wedge that has the dart in it and you just want to place it lined up with your new line and then match up so the dart should still be on the same continuum that it was from the arm side. You're going to need to stick paper under there and you'll want to tape it together, draw your line, and then blend this line back into your side seam. So then there would be your new pattern with the dart at an appropriate location for your body. And now we're ready to sew. So you can go ahead and get your materials, cut out your fabric, and let's get sewing.